All right, hey everybody, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We're in a not so sunny right now, California. We're with David Martinez, Martinez Industries. He's one of these guys that we talk to, like with the internet these days. You talk to people a lot on the internet, you admire their work, and then you finally get to come and meet them in person. So we're out here for Grand National Roadster Show, trying to see as many people as we can in like the 2 or 3 days we're here. And you were definitely the one of the people we wanted to stop and see and talk with you on our podcast / video interview, if you will. So, David, thank you for letting us come into the shop and interrupt your work week.
That's all right. Hey, I could use the break.
All right.
It's kind of like a vacation day for me. I'm like, this is great.
I don't have to work.
I don't have to work today. Well, sort of. I cleaned.
Yeah, that's how my brain works too. I'm like, I'm the boss, but I want to work all the time.
Well, that's my problem. I get up in the morning and I would set my alarm set for 3, and I'm like,
yeah, you're wild. You're up before me. Sometimes when you text me or you send me a message on Instagram, you send me a message before I'm awake East Coast time, and I'm like calculating in my head with time. I'm like, he said that at like 3:30 a.m. Like,
yeah,
that's wild. And I'm just getting out of bed. It makes me feel like a slacker.
No, I've been getting up for like 4:30 in the morning on average. You know, like the morning I got up like 3 in the morning. I woke up. I'm just like,
wow,
I'm awake. I'm gonna start working.
Crazy.
Get my day going. Get dogs taken care of. Have my breakfast, and work out, and pray the shop's warm, which it's not been here in the past day or so. It was nice. We had 8 degrees 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was 8 degrees. I'm here ready to turn the fan on in my shop. It got so warm.
And then
I can tell you right now, friends of mine back home give me the finger. Sorry.
So let's go to origin stories, because I know a little bit about your background, but I don't know if I really know. I mean, there's stuff even just us being here you're talking about that I didn't really know. So
where do you want to start?
Well, you're a transplant. So where are you originally born and raised?
Born and raised, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay.
Northeast corner, about 15 minutes away from Auburn.
Okay.
You've been there enough.
Yeah.
Literally that little right
yes,
there. Right,
yep.
Born and raised down on the south side of Fort Wayne.
Dad was a car guy.
Okay, I'll kind of explain that. He's actually, I've heard him my father because he basically raised me from the age of 15, 14 years old.
Right. Okay.
He's my stepfather, but he's been basically my father my whole life. He grew up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So he told me about back in the day, hot rods and this and that. So he used to race, old, Y blocks back in the day.
Oh, cool.
So I got to hear all those stories of that. So him and I and that's how my mom and him met on a date. And she took me as a deterrent for him. We sat there and we talked the whole time.
About cars?
Cars the whole time. We're sitting there just
cool.
chatting back and forth. And my mom's girlfriend that she was work with, she's like,
that backfired.
You want to let these two kind of talk? I'm like, and I looked at him. He's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. But him and I hung out. After that, him and I started hanging out. And my mom's like, what do you think? I'm like, maybe give him a try. I mean, him and I are getting along great. I'm like, I said, give me somebody to hang out with. And at that time, I had a 56 Ford truck. He had a 50 Chevy truck, a little 5-window truck he was tooling around with.
Okay.
So him and I, hey, I got my little lake place, up a big long lake. You want to go with me? We're going to put the boat in the water. I'm like, all right. So I took off with him. Him and I took off for the day, went and had lunch and hung out and talked more about cars, and just kind of grew from there. And then we started when they got together and they got married. Actually, him and I were living together already before they ever got married.
Oh, wow.
So him and I were just living together, and I was going to work at the parts place I worked at. And we had like a little 2-car garage we worked at. I mean, you had to move crap to one side, work on one car, crap to the other side, work on the other car.
Yep.
Had a little propane here in the wall. I mean, and again, you know what the winters are like back there. It's like, man, just, these big giant propane tanks, filling them up every 2 weeks, out there. Come on.
You know about the winter build, like you lived that life for a while.
That was the thing. So every season for me, growing up as a teenager, I'd get a car done. So if I get a car into primer and driving, I'd sell it.
Okay.
So the next that winter, I'd buy something else. Like, I'm gonna buy this instead. Oh, I do this one instead. So it kind of went from that stage to stage, and I had a 51 Merc one time. It's like I had that for a couple of years. I enjoyed that car. It was kind of fun. Just a 4-door.
Okay.
But it was like rust-free. Colorado car, guy bought it, had it stripped, had it put in primer, and all in etch prime, and just sat. And I went and bought it for like next to nothing. And back then, Butch's Rod Shop was a thing back then, and they'd sell the motor mounted bolt right in and crap like that. So, it kind of went from there, and then I started, just kind of doing that every year with my dad, and we'd work together constantly, between doing chops and stuff like that.
So it's kind of like a lot of people, organically, just learning as you go.
Completely. Yeah, and you're gonna make more mistakes than you're gonna make, do things right. Because I'm sure, yourself, I can look back and go, oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh,
I don't know. I feel like 2 weeks ago I could probably look back and be like, man, I could have made that better, or I could have done that better. It's like
right, and that's the, I guess that's the benefit of having what I have around me. It can keep me. I can go, oh well, I don't like that. I'm gonna redo that. Like I put the Calvet in Franco's 32 the other day, and I got so far, and I'm like, wasn't happy with that. Like, so I went through and I did some more hammering, some more dollaring. It's still not perfect, but I know Franco, and he's just like,
it's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care. I've had worse. I'm like, how is that a positive?
I'm looking for some positive.
No, and again, that's one thing about him. I try to send him something every day, and he just cheers up.
Yeah.
Oh, man, thanks, man. Needed that, and
that's cool.
I really, it's more and more pumped. Like we were actually, it was funny. We were talking today about discussing about driving across country, and actually coming to see you.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Like, that's what we'll do. We gotta do that. I'm like, okay.
Hell yeah, you guys got a place to stay.
I'm like, dude. I said, and like I said, you want to hear stories?
Yeah.
It would take you a month of evenings with him, and he'd still have more stories.
That'd be amazing.
I'm still hearing stuff I've never heard before.
That's awesome.
And again, so that's But I met Franco when I was in my early 20s, and
so before we get into that,
okay.
So after you were doing, just with your dad, and doing the car stuff, just learning as you go. What was there we like to call it in this series? What was your switch? What was the thing that made you go like all in? Like, I want to do this for a living, or what? Or went over the top? Because a lot of people could probably relate that you were fixing cars up and selling them and having fun, but what went to this is. And I'm in a similar situation,
you're like
we're broken a little bit. So what went from like the normal car guy thing, fixing a car here, fixing there in a 2-car garage, to like, I want to do this for a living. I want to build cars. I want to,
I've always wanted to do this, but there was always that nervousness. You're always scared. It's like, do I want to make that leap?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, prime example. I take you an example. You basically just like, I'm done with working for this company, and I'm doing this full time. And you're always on that weird cusp. It's like, is this going to be enough? Am I going to be able to pull this off?
Oh, yeah.
And what it was for me, like I was telling you, we were talking earlier about me working for the fireplace company I worked for, and I was a good paying gig, full insurance, I made good money.
Yeah. So a normal person would be like,
yeah. Basically, I lost my job working for that company. Again, this is back years ago. I can say this, back to making $8 an hour. And I went to work for an upholstery shop in my hometown.
Was that because you wanted to learn upholstery, or was just
No, I did want to learn upholstery. Actually, I did want to learn it, and I had already started doing some studying on how to do it.
Oh, cool.
And you get kind of ideas, and again, looking at all the old mags, and like, okay, that's how that's done, and that's and you're trying to dissect stuff. Again, doing enough of these hot rod stuff, you go through enough magazines, like, how was that done? How'd that guy do that? You're trying to figure it out. And the same for me. So when I did that, that was kind of a part-time thing, and I worked for the upholstery shop full-time. The car thing still was kind of a side gig, and then I started going down to Indianapolis, every weekend, and that's when I became one of the founding members with the Road Rockets. And there was like a few select of us that all got together. I wasn't in the beginning; the other guys were, but I came in right as the club started really growing, and
kind of met some people that were same mindset.
It truly, it's almost walking to a crowd. You're like, my people.
You belong.
You're like, I belong to this. This is more me than that.
Right.
And it's that switch, and like, I got into flatheads. I got into traditional hot rods. Traditional customs. And
the whole lifestyle and everything.
Completely.
Yeah.
The clothing, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
And again, all my vintage stuff is still stashed away right now because of the circumstances.
Right.
But all that stuff will come out again. But at the same time, I figured out where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I go, and doing stuff by hand for me was always like, it was much more, I appreciated more what I got done.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my switch moment when I lost that job, and then I took another job. I moved to Indianapolis. I took a job working for an upholstery shop. This is where it all happened. I went into there. I was getting ready to take off for a weekend. I told them already I was coming to Connecticut. I was coming to one of the Rumbler shows.
Okay.
And I told my boss at the time, hey, ahead of time, I'm going to be gone this weekend. I'll be back on Monday, or whatever day it was. Okay, write down this and that, put it on the calendar, wrote it down. And I get ready to leave, and they're like, no, you're not. I'm not? No, I said, I wrote down the calendar and everything. I gave you the note and everything. Oh, I don't have it. Okay.
Oh, no.
So that was in the morning. So by the afternoon, great leave. His wife said, well, we'll see you tomorrow. No, you won't. And I said, have a good weekend.
I'm going to be in Connecticut. Yeah.
I took off, and I came back, and one of my buddies he had his own hot rod shop, if you will.
Okay.
And he's like, are you going to go back to work with him? I'm like, no. He goes, good. I got a guy here who needs interior done on a Model T. And that's where, you asked where the switch was at, that was it. I'm like, okay. And back then it was like $2,500.
Right.
And that included materials back then. That was a full interior, and they had a pleated roof on this little T-coupe.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. This is back in the day when everything was really cost-effective back
Right.
then. And I still had that little small sewing machine, that little portable sewing machine. That was all I had. I didn't have my big sewing machine yet.
Right.
And it just kind of went from there. I did that, and my buddy Tom's like, hey, you want to do the interior of my Lincoln? I'm like, right on. Did the full interior on that thing. He had 4 individual T-bird seats.
Oh,
And
cool.
like a floating console in the middle.
Yeah,
I did,
yeah.
I did tuck and roll the dashboard, did the headliner the same way, all metal flake, gold flake
So
interior.
you're getting into some real.
Oh, yeah.
Right away, like second one. You're.
And it's like, bam, got into that. Did stuff for other guys that they want. I had guys coming for guitar cases. I'd line the guitar cases in that really soft leopard material.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, I'll do that. Motorcycle seats, no problem. And that's kind of where it started. That was when I went to actually business for myself, and I was still that. What am I doing? And at that time, I was working out of my roommate's house, one of the other club guy's house I was staying in.
Yeah.
And I made a deal with him to do the interior on his Roadster in trade for me staying there. So
Right.
that all worked out great. So I worked out of his house for a long time. It was you're always on that edge where you're like, I'm gonna make it or I'm not gonna make
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And man, am I gonna get myself so far in the hole where I'm like, what am I doing? Should I keep doing this?
Yeah.
And I had that point back in my early 20s where I'm like, I was still working, but it was like, just kind of not sure if I should stick with this, And at that time, actually, I went and got a part-time job, worked for FedEx.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah, working nights, and
You needed that. You
it-
needed to remember what it was like to work for somebody else, and
well,
like, this sucks.
it's kind of a sad situation because what happened was the defining moment where I learned not to give up is my grandfather had passed away, and
wow.
I talked to him not long before then.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kept telling me how proud of me he was, this and that. So when he passed away, I called him to work. I'm like, I can't make it in, this and that. And I sat there and thought about it. I'm like, I need to make a better go of this. And it goes like a year later or 2 later is when I came out here to California for the first time.
Okay.
And
So that was like switch number 2, maybe.
Oh yeah, that was totally switch number 2. I got out here and I'm like, I want to be here. And
That's cool.
that's where it still is. I'm still nervous doing that. I mean,
Yeah, I think any small business, you always feel like that, like you're saying, you're gonna one day you feel like you're gonna fail and everything's gonna come crumbling down. Other days
Completely.
you're like, this is the best ever.
Yeah.
Work for myself, do whatever I want, and this is great. And then
Yeah.
the next day you're like, man, hoping I can
keep
do
doing
whatever.
this.
Yeah, it's
I
always in my head.
gotta feed myself.
Right.
And again, it's like, then of course for me, I got dogs. I gotta feed my dogs.
Yeah,
I gotta pay insurance. I gotta pay shop insurance. I gotta pay this. It's like,
So you talked about a little bit about, and I don't know the history about this, but you mentioned about some of the, I'm going to call it fancy car stuff you were doing, or sports car stuff,
yeah.
and some of that. And did you say it was Nitro Alley that you were?
I worked for some of the race teams.
Okay. Can you talk about that a little bit? That's
Sure,
super
sure.
fascinating.
That was, I again, the whole, am I gonna make it, not make
Yeah.
it? I lost my shop that I had,
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, where do I go? Again, I was running skinny, then I'd run fat, then I'd run skinny. It's
Yep.
like, so I found the shop out in Brownsburg. At the time, it belonged to Bill Simpson.
Okay.
And 1,000 square foot shop. I went from a 2,000 square foot down to a 1,000 square foot
Oof.
shop. So I learned real fast what I wanted to keep, what I didn't want to keep.
What was necessary?
But again, what I have here now, there's no way. I didn't have any of this stuff here. The only thing I had was the planching hammer in the back corner. That's all I had.
Yep.
Everything else was like a toolbox. And my sewing machine, my sewing table. Because at that time, I was still only just doing upholstery work. I wasn't doing. I wasn't.
You weren't doing
I
metal
wasn't.
fab stuff really.
Well, I wasn't offering it.
Okay.
Because again, the whole self-confidence. If I'm good enough or not, should I offer that? It's kind of. I'll do that for myself.
Right.
And, but I got there and I started meeting the guys around there.
Okay.
And my neighbor next door, he was one of the chief mechanic for the Snap-on bike.
Wow.
So him and I became good neighbors, good friends, good neighbors, still friends this day. At the time, I had a male boxer named Cisco, and my neighbor loved that dog, loved my dog. My dog knew when he'd come in, he'd go to the door, open the door, I could hear him knock on the door next door. My neighbor would open the door, he's come in that door, because he knew his shop was air conditioned.
Oh, that makes sense.
So especially in the summertime, he knew that's where to be at. Or
Yeah.
down the way was the Silver Crown team for Patron Racing.
Yep.
So when those guys would get there, he'd go down there and they had all kinds of cookies and snacks for him. So ironically, that dog got me work.
Wow.
He wandered off one day, and I panicked. Like, where did he go? So I'm walking around. The guy sees me walking around, and it was on the other side of the building. Because it was like giant long building. And there's back-to-back shops.
Yep.
And the one was for the Penske race team. And he's like, "Hey," I said, "Hey, I'm just doing this." He's like, "Did you lose your dog?" Yeah.
Yep.
He goes, "Boxer." I'm like, "He's in here," because they had a female boxer, but she wasn't there.
Okay.
So we got talking one day, and we were talking that same day. And he's like, "Hey, so you're the guy that does the upholstery, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Well, we got these tables, the courtesy tables. They were just round tables, and they wanted vinyl covers to slide over them." I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I grabbed the table, and I'm walking off, and he's walking with me. I'm like, "You're lucky, man. You got me work. You're lucky I'll kick your little butt."
Yeah.
But again, that's how I started getting more involved with the racing. Then across the street was Don Schumacher. So that thing, massive. That place is, it's my building here would fit in the corner of that place.
Right.
It's so huge in that place because you got to take consideration all the not just the race cars, all the semis, the tractor trailers, all inside.
Yeah.
And there's still tons of room around them. It's basically like behind those rigs is the length of my building. It is so huge, and above is stored all the race bodies. So I got tied in with them, doing stuff for them.
So the word kind of got around the whole the complex, if you will. And
Yeah,
was like,
and it's like, oh, Dave does upholstery stuff, so they need stuff done for the back of the vehicles they were leasing when they were doing stuff for Monster Drink.
okay.
So they bring over the Dodge Durangos, and I would make in liners for inside the back of the tailgates, everything else. I was even helping out one of the shops that did paint work for them, and we were doing a show car, which is one of the cars that got retired,
Okay.
and we were laying out the star on the side of the panel, and they couldn't figure it out. Like, "Oh, you guys can't figure this out?" So I'm laying it out real fast. I lay a tape out, I pull it back, there you go. And so, but I was running back and forth in my shop across the street and helping those guys out with paint work.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a great community. Down the road was Vance and Hines. I did a seat for Andrew Hines for his daily driver.
That's
And
cool.
again, it was crazy how many guys were in that shop. That I got to meet with. Did work for with Antron Brown, actually a good friend of mine. When he was running with Matco back in the early days, they bring me their canopies, and I repair their canopies that they had for their courtesy tents.
Right.
There's, I think there's a picture of my dog standing on top of the canopy out in the parking lot. Well, I'd drag my sewing machine out there, and I'd repair their panels. There's like a little tear here or there I'd go through, and I had a big giant roll of canvas I'd go through and I'd sew it in to match it. Versus them replacing it, I just repair stuff.
So like nowadays, you can look back and be like, wow, that was cool. Like at that time,
completely.
did you realize you were in the center of,
All the racing is right there.
Yeah.
It was just like, holy crap, this is insane. It was like, I look back now and I go, that's wild.
Yeah, you didn't really probably
But
sink in fully at that time.
at that age, you know, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just like, okay, I got to pay rent.
So
You know?
what was the first time you came out to California? I
Oh, it
kind
was-
of
no, it's fine.
stepped you back.
I know, that's fine. That was 2005. I came out here with a show car. I did the full interior of the car, and this car was winning awards. Actually, it was a contingency for Customer of the Year back then.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. I was showing the car for the guy in 2004,
Cool.
and I went to Columbus, Ohio for Good Guys Nationals.
Yep.
Girl I was at the time, I stayed at her place. I unloaded the car at her place, and then we drove it to Good Guys.
Cool.
I drove it every day, and the guy was overseas, you know, on vacation.
Wow.
I do that car every day. I'm like, I'm not trailing this thing over there. I'm gonna drive this car.
Yeah, cool.
So I got there. I got a Good Guys pick for custom for the show for at that time Rod and Custom.
Cool.
You know, I didn't pick it was
R.I.P..
Rod. Yeah, exactly. And then I got another feature shoot with Custom Rodder. So again, it's like I got to meet a lot of people doing that car, and again, that's where did that car, and then we're like, hey, we're gonna go to California. You want to go?
Nice.
And about that time, at that time, and that was my ex-fiance. We split, and I'm like, I went out of town. So my dogs went to my friend who had another boxer, and hopped in that truck and trailer, and we went across country, and then coming to
Cool.
California. I mean, it was a heck of a trip. I mean, it was just amazing. And coming out here, you know, I knew people already here in California. I got friends of mine that are up in San Francisco, so I get a hold of them. They come grab me from the show. We go out for the night, hanging out, whatever.
Cool.
But coming out here, I knew I wanted to come out here. I just, you know, even before then, I knew I wanted to come to California before I actually even came out here. I knew that the year prior, and got out here and like I got to come out here. I'm tired of shoveling snow. I hate the winters. You know.
Okay, I can relate to that.
Well, yeah, but that's the advantage. You get to do trips, which is great. It
Yeah.
gets you a little break other than dealing with rain.
Yeah.
You know,
If you hear rain, we're in a metal building, and
Yes.
I'm going to try my best to remove all of it.
so don't yell at us in the comments because we're in a metal building
I can
and
hear
Mother
the
Nature.
rain. Yeah, exactly. Well, at least it's not coming on too awful bad.
So we were talking about one of my favorite things recently was we were going to be doing an interview with Franco, and he just couldn't make it. So thank you again. Did his killer print, or not print, hand drawing.
Yes, that's it. That's one of Franco's famous pen inks.
Yes, it's amazing. So thank you to that. But anyways, we were preparing for that. I was re-watching Car That Ate My Brain, like before I flew out, and it had been a while since I've watched it. I've watched it a bunch of times, but I was watching it, and then I'm watching it, blah blah, and then you get to the part talking about a sewing machine being broken.
And my good buddy Dave Martinez from Indianapolis, right? Illinois? Indiana. Someplace back east where all those hobos live. Is doing the upholstery. Old school hardcore with his little machine that barely made it here. And
Dave, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember, like didn't put two and two together, and
Yeah.
it was just so ironic. So how did your relationship with him, like you said you met him at a show?
Yeah, that was at Cal Palace in 2005. It's funny because I told Franco this in the past, as I got to know him, and I said, you're kind of unapproachable. And he's like, I am. You're not. I said, it's just you're always wearing the glasses, and there's a reason why he's always wearing glasses for his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, but you look like you're unapproachable, but you're not. I said, and then we hung out that entire Saturday for Cal Palace. We sat there and we BS back and forth
Right.
the whole time. He's like, so where are you from? I'm from Indiana. He's like, oh man, I thought you were from here. I'm like, no. I said, I want to be from here. Then he mentioned about the lightning bug.
Yep.
He's like, hey, I'm recreating the lightning bug. That was the car before the Kooten car.
Yep.
Same car, same body, just the original car was the lightning bug.
Yep.
Are you interested in doing the interior? I'm like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for monetization by any means.
Right.
And I
Right.
told him that. I'm like, look, I don't want any money. Just buy my plane ticket. And so months go by. I reach out to him like, hey, you still doing your car? And yeah, you still interested in doing it? He says, yeah. I said, let me know what I said, just buy my plane ticket. I'll have my sewing machine sent out. I paid for all the upholstery. I didn't want a dime.
Right.
I just wanted to be able to be part of something.
Yeah.
Because I'd done enough cars up to that point, but they were all local stuff, and it was always tougher. Being a one-man operation, you're not getting as much recognition, and
Yeah.
it was tough to keep getting work coming in. Again, that's what you're feast or famine.
Yep.
You
100%.
know, you're on either fence. So when I came out here, I got got to the airport, and I got there, and we got to working, hung out. Got me one of my bad habits of having smoking cigars because that was the trip I started smoking cigars with
Oh,
Franco.
jeez.
I know.
But
But-
you knew that car. You knew what he was doing.
I
and that
knew
car was something
the
special.
potential of
Yeah.
what that car was going to be because like yourself, I started doing research more into Franco of his cars. I knew his artwork,
Yeah.
but I knew he did cars. I didn't know what he did. I remember the Kuchen car.
Yep.
I did not. I vaguely remember the goldenrod, and then he did the Hot Wheels 32 5-window, and then, but doing the lightning bug was something completely new. So I started doing more research on that, and this was like, okay, I'll date myself back in the day when eBay was new.
Yeah, it was a new
And
thing.
I'm looking at lightning bug, and I got the hot rod issued cover
Yep.
with it. I still have that.
Yep. Same. Yep.
Yeah, and again, it really, I'm like, I really, I want to do this. And so he emailed me pictures that he had, and I'm going through and I'm studying them, I'm zooming in, on a computer. We
Yeah.
don't have phones back then. It
Right,
was all on
yep.
computer. So, I remember your phrase that we didn't have smartphones. We had, flip phone Nokias and crap
Right,
like that,
right.
But, I went through and I researched, and he sent me pictures of the Kuchen car. I said, the interior is wrong on the Kuchen car, right? He goes, no. I said, those aren't sewn pleats, it's tuck and roll. If you zoom in far enough, you can see the indentation in the actual vinyl, and you can see where the fold's at.
Wow.
So when I came out here, and him and I were watching the home videos that he got from Grabowski, and I'm like, see, right there. And I pointed out, and he's like, magnifying glass, zooming in. I'm like, see, right there. Okay. And like even like the floor pleats on the floor, I sat there and it took me a few hours to get it sorted out, and I'm counting the diamonds, and I'm looking where all the screws located, where the seams are at. So again, it was wanting to do a recreation of what the car was. It wasn't more or less, an interpretation. It was like I wanted to recreate what the interior was.
Right.
So that's one thing him and we did very well together. And I think after doing that car, I did like a couple more other restoration work. I did the work with the Westergard Cadillac. I did for Kurt McCormick, and then I did the Trojan T. At the time, the gentleman that owned the car was Ralph Wentworth, and before he had his health issues and passed away. And again, like you're saying, seeing the amazing things I got to see doing this stuff for a lifetime. Going and seeing the American car collection before it got taken apart.
Dispersed. Yeah.
Seeing the Druid Princess, and seeing Tommy Ivo's car, and seeing Elvis's limo, the Tagnati coupe was there,
All in one spot.
all
Yeah.
there. The Henderson Roadster was sitting right there next to me when I was working. It was the Beatty belly tank roadster, the belly tank race car was sitting there. It's just like, and I'm in this massive building with heated floors, which I never knew that existed until then. I'm like, oh, that makes
Amazing.
sense.
Yeah.
But again, I'm getting to be around these cars. The Tom Cobb Roadster. That was in the little lobby, if you will. With all the cars all the parts came with that car. All
Wow.
the trophies came with that car. But again, that's where it comes back. I count my blessings to where I've been able to work with some really unique cars, and and unique people as far as getting to be around them. And again, but working with Franco was just like. Growing up as a kid, I remember him, in the old magazines. Like, oh, it'd be cool to meet that guy. It'd be cool to meet that guy.
He just looks cool as shit. Like,
And
but you say it just like, but I get the unapproachable thing because he
Just
just looks like a cool rock star that you
Yes.
wouldn't, and
Yes,
that's what we were saying when we were driving over and we were talking about doing an interview with him. I've never met him in person, so I said I don't know if he's going to be like more of a short type. You ask a question, So I get that vibe, but that's cool.
When you guys get a chance to sit down and do an interview, and again, what sounds like we'll just come out and seeing you more than
Be
likely.
awesome. So when was the first? Because you've now, when I'm looking at some of your stuff, coming into knowing you later, I see you doing a lot. Some of the more well-known, like your Westergard car and stuff like that. Like, what was your first? Was that the first, like, car with history you did? Or,
No, that wasn't the first one.
Or how did that come?
Well,
like,
technically, I think it was. I know you bring it. Now I'm thinking back. Actually, yeah, it was the first car that I did a restoration interior for, and that kind of got my name brought out there. That hey,
Right.
David does can restore what they did back then.
Yes.
Because, and I don't mean to pick on anybody who does upholstery. And it's some stuff looks a little too sterile.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any traditional tuck and roll you look at, most of the stuff is very flat, and everything I have has a crown to it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I've learned more about doing that. Stuffing pleats, I use the cross channel foam, and that's a really dense foam, and that stuff usually gets a nice crown to it. It's
Cool.
I've used 1/2 inch foam in the past, and just it's good for doors, but it's not good for seats as far as
Understood.
trying to get that nice crown. Because if I do that, I'll have to stuff the pleats. If I use 1/2 inch foam and I cross cut it and I use that, and I'll still stuff the pleats with either day crown or cotton.
Okay. So you kind of are staying true to how it was done.
Yes.
Which is more of a restoration mindset versus a custom.
Correct.
So that's pretty cool.
It's like I say, it's always comical. And I'll bring up David Zivo again because he'll always send me like different things. Like he'll send me a book one day and he'll mark it. See, here's just like you do. And it's a restoration book, and it talks about how doing stuffing the old pleats.
That's cool.
I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. And again, but that's where when it comes to doing the restoration stuff, I try to stay true to that. I really the modern stuff is great. These guys do some amazing work.
Right.
Like stuff. Okay, this is like Mikey Seats doing, mind blowing. I'm like, that's awesome. Could I do it? Maybe.
Right.
But it's not what I do. It's not. I try to stick with what I like doing.
So you kind of found just like you telling the story, you found your spot.
Yeah.
As far as upholstery goes, you found your spot of what you really like to do and the type of work and the type
Yeah.
of cars.
Well, and again, like we were discussing, doing with traditional cars and restoration cars, and then getting involved with doing, the pad tops, and I'll give the man credit for it because I learned it from Eddie Martinez, but sadly, for him, he couldn't do it anymore, so he took on a job which was a Zevo Roadster and couldn't do it.
Oh, see, I didn't know this part of
So
it.
yeah, so a lot of people don't realize that. And again, Eddie would basically stand there going, "Well, do this and this." And I'm like, okay, and he would, and not trying to speak ill of the man, but he just wasn't getting the stuff done. So that's how David Ziva and I became friends. He started calling me. He's like, "Hey, what's going on with my car?" And that was my Burbank shop.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, not a whole lot right now. Eddie was here the other day, but he, and Eddie had really bad health issues back then. And I'm like, sadly, I said, I don't know if he's going to finish your car. I'd rather be honest with you. I said,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, can you get it done? I'm like, maybe. And because I wasn't certain of myself at that point, but I'd already built the frame. And
With him, you were
Just-
already kind of doing the hands-on part of it.
yes, I was. And it kind of went from there. And there was another gentleman up in like Washington named Jamie Rice, and he did the recovery work on the original frame for the Westergard.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I heard of Jimmy Rice. So I called up Jamie and I said, hey, could you possibly, come down and take care of this top for my client? I'm a little busy right now, this and that. You sure it's something you can't do? I'm like, maybe. So I was able to, kind of help Eddie kind of creep along, but I'd go behind Eddie at night, and I'd send pictures to David. He goes, well, can you fix this and this? Because Dave wasn't happy with certain things.
Yeah.
No problems. I'd go behind Eddie, whatever he'd done, I'd redo things. And I guess I'm not trying to speak ill of the man. It's just
Well, age
he-
catches up with all of us.
age catches up with
yeah.
all of us, and unfortunately for him, it just it was harder and harder for him to get the work done.
Yep.
And once that car at the top was done, I took over the project at that point. I had a buddy of mine, Jeff Savage, fly out from Indianapolis, and he painted the nitrocellulose lacquer on that car.
It's crazy cool.
He stayed with me
yeah.
for 2 weeks, and actually it was longer than that. He did that car and another car, but we did that car there in my Burbank shop. The plastic on the walls. Again, it was comical where we shot at. And that old shop had like a little sliding door.
Yep.
It was right there. We went up there and we stapled in plastic all around there. They made a little opening there and there. And
Yeah, I've done that once or
it,
twice.
it wet the floors down, and I got pictures of Jeff barefoot, wet sanding on a fender.
Oh my God.
It's comical.
So what was it like with Eddie, kind of did you get to hear many stories, or just you were just trying to take in whatever?
Some, but like I said, I'm not trying to speak ill of the man, but he wasn't great on business.
Okay.
But
Some of the best
sadly
customizers and things, artists, not always the best at business.
Well,
but they're,
and that was the thing, and unfortunately for Eddie, it just a lot of it rode on his name, and which he did great work. I'm not going to take that away from Eddie. He did some amazing cars back in the day.
Okay.
But as he got older, it became harder and harder for him, to get things squared away and get things done. And guys were just like, I had guys that come to me, that guy ripped me off and this and that. I'm like, no, I'm just warning you. Just I'm like,
yeah.
And again, there's always two sides to every coin. And I go, but the problem is for Eddie, I think he would, again, like you said, we're all like that, a feast or famine. Even for Eddie, it was that way.
Wow.
Because he would take so much stuff in, but couldn't get it done.
Well, I guess, and talking to some of the guys that I've been able to hang out with, like specifically Winfield, talking about that era when that style of hot rods and customs wasn't cool anymore.
Right.
It was super famine for those guys because people weren't really looking for padded tops.
No.
Or his style of work in that 70s, 80s era.
Right. No, and that's the thing. You even grew up as a teenager. I remember, even back then, the pad top wasn't much of anything. Back in the 80s and 90s.
No.
That wasn't really.
Except for you see some photos of some nostalgia cars, but they were
right.
unusual. They weren't. That was the whole subgenre of the traditional and nostalgia stuff.
Correct.
Wasn't cool, but guys were still doing it.
Yeah, and we got lucky, and a lot of cars survived that.
Yes.
Some cars didn't survive that. You look back and you go, I wonder what happened to that car. This one here, and you look at other cars, you go, how did that car disappear?
Yeah, it's pretty cool now seeing the lengths that people are going through, and I'm very much in that field of finding the parts or finding the car. So I'm so psyched that there's more people doing that, and that's always been my obsession even before I found my spot.
It's funny, doing this what I do now, and it's something that I've been discussing in recent times, that my goal in the 5-year span basically is I'll eventually start a school.
Oh, cool.
I want to actually teach, from start to finish, everything I do. Pad tops, upholstery, the whole 9 yards. And it's not going to be like a weekend course. I'm like a 2-year program, bringing 6 to 8 students,
Yep.
like a regular semester,
That'd
do
be cool.
like a vocational school. That way, again, doing what we do, I don't want to see it get lost. That's my biggest fear with doing this stuff for a living. I'll be seeing people who've lost over the years. I look back and I go, I remember back, we brought up Winfield.
Mm-hmm.
I was out there at Winfield's when Watson was there, and Barris. They were all there. All that big group photo you always see. There was on the ham back in the day. I was there that day,
Shit,
and to see all the people stand there, and it's half of them are gone. If not, almost all of them are gone.
Almost all of them. Yep.
And I talked to Winfield the other day, and we're going to be doing a metal seminar here later this spring or summer.
Nice.
He was
nice.
asking about doing a metal class here. I'm like, he's asking what tools you have, what tools you don't have. I'm like,
Of everything you need.
pretty much. I think I don't have is just his little slip roll thing he does. I used to have one years ago. A couple things that he has I don't have. I don't have a louver punch. But
I've done a bunch of classes with him and helped him, and I feel like he can work with almost anything.
Well, that's why I was talking to Michael Leanne, has been his caretaker, and I was talking to her and him both on the phone. And Gene's like, yeah, that'd be great. I'm like, dude, I see you're more than welcome to the shop. Just let me get some cars out of the way so we have room here.
Right.
Back in the day, I tell guys, you get in that class, it teaches you a lot of the basic stuff. Okay,
Yep.
This stuff costs a lot of money.
That's what I like about the
It's-
Winfield classes. He came from the era of building a car with very limited tools,
And
and he still teaches that.
yeah.
But those fundamentals are, no matter if you're using a big tool or a hammer and dolly and a shop bag, it's the same principles.
And that's where I like a lot of guys. I still have my Eastwood hand shrinker stretch that I bought when I was back in my teens.
Yep.
And when it comes to, like you said, the stuff like Winfield does, do the gas welding, that really is, again, I could do it.
I learned a lot with Winfield. It was kind of crazy. Like some of the stuff that I learned from him is little things he did with it. It wasn't the gas welding itself. There was little tricks he did with the torch. He'd do the stupidest stuff, And I picked that up with other friends that worked at the shop. They're like, there's just little nuances, things that they do. They're like, holy crap. Like the one time I saw Winfield somewhere, I was doing something with him, and it was like a red hot panel and the torch went out. He got too close and the torch went out. He just like touched it on the red hot panel and it lit back up. And you're like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but I
makes
never
sense.
thought
It's
of
a
that.
T-
And, it's
yeah.
like, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to go look for the striker or whatever. And I'm like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's the stuff you can't, it's just years of doing this work that you
That's
pick up.
exactly. You've been doing it for so long, and you realize I'm already here. I'm not doing this again. You know, I don't want to get out. Or if you're in a spot, you're like, I don't want to stop where I'm at if I'm right there. You know, and again, and that is stuff that does come with time, and you'll find those little tricks like that.
I'm sure with upholstery you've had
a
a million things that you.
Well, and again, it's like for me, I would, you know, when I know what I'm doing with the interior, I know how much piping I'm going to use. I'll go, okay, I need this, and I'll lay everything out in math. I know exactly what it's going to be, you know, and when it comes to laying stuff out, I'll do a test panel to make sure I know how much material stretches and what I
Wow.
can do with it. So I know, okay, this how many pleats can take this panel or this seat. This seat's going to need 18 pleats across.
So I never would have
You
thought
know,
of that.
so
Like pre-stretching the material to get.
Well, it gives you an idea because you don't overstretch it, but you don't want to understretch it. You don't want it baggy. You don't want it this and that, and you want to have that crown. So, like I said, I can tell you, you have that same style, and you know exactly what you're doing across that panel. Because especially when you got a front seat and you got two backs here, and they're off ever so slightly, but you want that panel to line up.
Yep.
And with what I do, I can manipulate the material a little bit here and there, and what's on the seat cover. I can, and it's old school. You're basically in there slapping pleats around. You're basically getting stuff lined back up.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
You know, but again, like with the piping, I know how many lengths I'm going to need of it, so I'll know. Okay, I need this much of it, get all my stuff all pre-cut out, and I'll spend a day sewing all nothing but piping. You know, just sitting there, just stacks of rows of piping, just sitting there, and I just cut as I go. You keep on going, just keep going. But that part's the simpler part. But when it comes like the pad tops, and I've always said to everybody else, none of them are the same. I don't care how many I've done.
I can't imagine.
They're not. They're not. I don't care.
It's a sculpture more than a top. It's like you're
and again,
working
when
art.
it comes to making like, patterns for the roof, that's what you mean patterns. Like they're in the trash as I'm done with them.
Every car is
Because
different.
there's no point in having them. You know, again, like I've said before, guys go, well, I said, unless you're getting a top done by like Keith Dean, those are fiberglass, and he's got those pretty much down to what they're going to be.
Yeah, makes
That's
sense.
what you're getting, and that's great. That's fine if that's what you want to go with. Great. I said, but I'm a mindset more of a restoration than I am of fast. I want it right. I got to look at the car. I go, it doesn't look right. And I've got old photos from the Carson Hauser shop.
Oh,
Of
cool.
rows of old pad tops on 36 Fords, all just backed into the shop, so you can see all the different types of tops.
Right.
And that's where for me, studying that kind of stuff, you're like, I want a certain way. So yeah, I've got my niche of where I want to do certain things. Can I do high-end cars? And yeah, I could do them. I did the 75th anniversary Jaguar for a Jaguar with Galpin Ford. I did the
no
interior on
kidding.
that car.
Wow.
Yeah, and again, it's like it was like, that's your work. I'm like, yeah, that's my work.
But that stuff bores me.
But again,
Not bores
it
you,
doesn't
but
bore me. But again, it was neat being part of that project. It's like, cool, that's cool. But it's not as cool as an old hot rod coming in. Or
Do you have a favorite car that you've either been involved in or you've done the top and interior on? Do you have a car that stands out, or cars?
easy,
Yeah. All right.
easy. The Zevo Roadster.
Thing's amazing. I mean,
That thing's a blast to drive. That thing was. I drove around Orange County because I went and we were getting the suspension worked on to get it tweaked, to get it just right. Because there was a guy in Orange County that David had found an old article back in the day of this guy that could really work on a solid axle car and get everything to line up perfectly, get the car to sit level. And even the guy's like, I don't know how the heck he found me. He goes, it was some tech article you did. He goes, I vaguely remember that. He goes, how did he remember that? I said, that's the owner of the car is that way. And I went over to a place called Fantasy Muffler to get the exhaust work done on it because David wanted to have the exhaust redone. And I get there and the guy's like, oh, we gotta leave it here. I'm like, no. I said, you can do it today while I'm here, or I'm gonna leave. Oh, I don't have. I'm like, nope. I left. I called up David. And I got back to the guy's alignment shop, and I said, yeah, guy, he this and that, David. I'll take it over here when I get back to Vegas. But I drove that car around Orange County.
Cool.
And I think again, you know, certain cars we know we get in these old cars, you feel like you're stepping back in time. That car had that feeling. I'm like, whoa,
Really?
this was trippy, you know. And this car, like, people are just doing this, and their heads are turning, seeing this car go by. Because at the time that car came out, that wasn't a common design. That wasn't a common car you'd see on the road, especially with that pad top.
Yep.
You know, not trying to say that, you know, I'm the pinnacle of pad top when it came out, but that car's design between the owner, the Kennedy brothers, and myself, you know, it was like
Created a
it just
special,
really just you know, and the Kennedy brothers did a beautiful job on the car because they did all the chopping, all the metalwork stuff that got down to the car, and then my buddy Jeff painted the car for me.
Yeah, it's cool. Some of the, there's cars like that you just walk up on and you just everything's just.
And again, doing the chrome dashboard, and you know, Dave was very specific on the interior. And it was funny because when we were doing that car, the interior, I was telling Dave about the carpet. I'm like, well, you need to use wool carpet. You sure? I'm like, positive. So I went to his house in Las Vegas at the time. A girlfriend of mine drove out there, and he had a 32 Lincoln in his garage.
Oh, no kidding.
And 5-window coupe.
Cool.
Open the door, wool carpet on the floor, original. I'm
See?
like, David. He goes, yep, you're right. But again, that's one of those cars where if there's any car that I would love to ever have, is that car.
For you, that would be.
Oh my, the car was amazing, and I got to meet the gentleman who had actually owned the car before David.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was funny talking to him. I liked it when it was green.
You're like,
Yeah, because it was that old Ford, that weird Ford green.
yeah.
And I liked it when it was that way better. I'm like, but he was a full-on, he was kind of a restore guy, but he had two supercharged flatheads sitting there under the.
We run into that a lot with guys that are like, if it's under their rules, it's okay to modify it.
It's there, but you know, he's I liked it when it's green, and you know, it's like you know, it was comical. I was I was talking about that car, and you know, people I know that they're like, I remember that car. I was back over in Sherman Oaks. I'm like, yeah, that's the same car.
Cool.
You know, but
Do you have is there a car that you would, I mean, whether it's lost forever or whatever, is there a car you'd love to see found or be involved in bringing back or restoring that, you know, you've done so many cars, it's like, it's hard, but is there?
honest, again, I'll bring it up again. It'd be the Bulgarian Merc. It's just felt the face of the earth.
And you have kind of a connection a little bit with knowing.
Sort of. But that, remember that was like back in the 70s.
Okay.
When he owned that car, and
But that would be one that you would, if it could be found.
That one, and what's the other one? Look on it. I've actually talked to the guy, you know, the original owner of the car, of another Merc.
Oh, okay.
It was actually the very first car that Sam Barris chopped. Everything Sam's car was the first car chopped. It wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm drawing a blank here. This is great. It was okay. In the old Bear, when the Barris books first came out, it was like it's the very first 49 chop mark in the book. And I've talked to the owner actually, because in the article, in the original hop-up issue, where it's on the cover, and it's described in the dashboard. Oh, it's this in chrome. And he goes, and I asked him. I said, so we got on the phone and I discussed him. I said, so what was it? He goes, no, it was just a painted dashboard. I said, okay, trunk was just stock. The interior, stock interior, just a change headliner. So he bought that car brand new.
Wow.
He bought the car brand new. He told me, I bought the car brand new. He took it over there, did all the metalwork on the car, the shop, and basically, dechroming the car, if you will. Because you look at that car and you're like, it's a really an amazing custom, but it's not radical.
The early stuff was like that.
It was really subtle.
Yep.
You know, it had the 51 Ford grill, which actually I have one here.
Cool.
Because I was wanting to recreate that car a long time ago, but it's like, what time do I have right now to do it? And like
Right.
I'm already buried in multiple builds and projects of my own. But it was always that point where I'd like to recreate that car.
Cool.
And it's again it's an iconic car, and I can't believe I'm not remembering the name of the car right now. Anyway, but
It's all right. We'll put it here. Mike will do that. Any
yeah,
magic.
I'll
All kinds of great
I'll
stuff.
find it and I'll send it over to Mike.
Who'll even edit in you saying the name. It'll
Yeah.
look good.
He's like a puppet.
Yeah, we'll do some green screen work. We
Right,
got
yeah.
all that technology.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. Yeah, no, we're not. But again, it's one of those kind of cars. If that car would ever surface, and there's been rumors that there was like pictures back in the '80s that someone saw it in Arizona, in a backyard. It would look the closest I've ever seen pictures of the car, but who knows?
It's kind of like what these lost hot rods and customs. It's become like an Indiana Jones type thing where there's like rumors, and people were going to places because they heard that a car, you
Yeah.
even think of like the Sahara, Gold Sahara was like, and Cookie Car. It's like
Yeah.
everybody knew, a lot of people knew that Jim Street, everyone kind of did through folklore,
Yeah.
but everybody kind of knew that like he would string people along and whatever. So it was like people were going out I heard stories of people were like going out to see him to try and like take him out to dinner and hang out, and he would play the game and take them to different buildings and forget the keys. And it's like people have now started hunting these cars, and the chase is just as
Completely.
important.
And again, and that's where again I think it's like you said, Indiana Jones. It feels like it.
Oh, we love it. That's
But it's the thrill of the hunt, thrill of the chase, and it's no different than chasing down parts.
right. Yeah.
It's a little easier now, than what it had been in the past. I mean, I remember back, my 20s going to swap meets, and of course back then everything was way affordable back then.
Yeah, it's gotten expensive.
I look at I had a 32 truck grill shell in my coupe, and I bought that for $100. I'm like, that one costs more now to buy that grill than it does to buy a standard 32 grill shell.
Yeah.
It's like double the price. I'm like, when did that happen?
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of neat that the cars, people are chasing down cars, or I'm excited because there's definitely has been a change in that people are more going after stuff that's historic or trying to keep it how it was, and even into like for a lot of guys, I've seen it regionally. Guys are finding a car that wasn't famous, but maybe in their little neck of the woods, it was well known, and they're finding the car and buying it and keeping it how it was and all that stuff. So
Completely. And that's where we've been seeing some restored cars here recently, and it's kind of amazing to see them coming back.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the one that was all lace paint that just came out recently. It's back being restored the way it was. The Hawker or the Hawker Ford.
Yep. Do you have an item that is kind of like your, I don't know, I would say like is your key thing? Do you have a key thing in your, whether it's a tool, piece of equipment or a tool or a car part? Do you have something that's like super never would get rid of or couldn't live without, or is most meaningful?
Yeah, I got two. Actually, this is a 2-itemized thing here.
Okay.
David Zevo had gifted me years ago an original tack hammer and an old ice pick for an awl. It was an old guy back in the 40s did upholstery, and gifted them to me. Here, got these
cool.
for you. It's one thing that it's the smallest little thing like that. And it's like, and it's ironically, I make it a point whenever I'm doing a pad top on any car I do, I use those two pieces of tools. Whether I'm installing something, if it's just one use, I make sure that hammer
That's
and
cool.
that awl is used on that project. Just to it's that piece of history from the 40s. I got to hold in my hands and use on this car.
Killer.
So for me, between that and of course other my sewing machines, again, it's to me that I wouldn't be who I am or where I am without them.
That's cool.
And again, that's where the big stuff that always came later.
Yeah, but I like that little. That's what we ask a question like that for everybody, and it's like, it doesn't have to be a super rare piece of speed equipment or whatever. It could be something like you said. There's two little tools, but
it's so small, and you're going. You look at that, and go, wow, it's all. It's just an old original tack hammer. And again, you got to think this is in the 40s. That's probably like from the 30s, to be honest.
Yeah.
You think about that, and it's an ice pick, not a actual awl. It's an ice pick.
right.
I'm like, that's a true ice pick. That's not,
Think how many interiors that car, those two items have, even before you have.
Well, and again, like I've got behind me on the wall here, I've got old wood hammers from England, an old coach worker back in the 40s and 30s, and an old lead bag that was his. I've never used lead bag; it just lays around, but the hammers are on the wall, and so is the slapper.
That's what creates. I think that in a lot of shops like yours and mine and other ones you go into, that have old cars, old tools, old parts, old building, it just feels,
And it's like I say, well, it's like even like behind Mike there's a lathe that's from like the 1930s. Back in that corner is an old Buffalo drill press from like 1908.
Killer.
It's like, and they had like rear end gears that drove it like going, well, this won't break. And again, I started restoring it years ago, and the teeth were clean as can be. I'm like, in the new shop, all that stuff got all set up and finished getting restored. Same with the old lathe. I want to finish restoring that, and then that's from my home state, South Bend lathe.
all the old stuff gives that feel when you walk in a place.
It's
which is
all of
great.
it. I mean, you know as well as I do when it comes to with old cars. You know, no matter how much rot we got to replace, we still started with something.
Right.
You know, even like with Franco's car, the front cowl is original.
Okay.
But you know, the rest of the car was like United Pacific reproduction. But it still has a little bit of that Henry Ford still there. There's still a little bit of that vibe. You know it's there. It's a little crude, it's a little rough, but he knows it's there. I know it's there. I said, and that's even
Cool.
the full firewall feet, those original 32 firewall feet.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know,
part of it that you
it's-
grasp onto, and
And that's the way I look at it. Even like that old hood, that's an old. You saw the louvers on that thing. That thing's old. And I got that from a friend of ours, and I got a 34 truck, and I'm like, I'll make it work.
Yeah.
You know, just 'cause I
Worth
showed-
the effort. Yeah.
Well, it is totally those old school louvers, and Franco's like, I want those louvers. I'm like, it's yours. You know, I'm like, he just gave it to me. I'm like, he's like, I don't want it. I said,
Speaking of hoods, that's how David. My interaction with David, which is, I didn't. No disrespect to him, I didn't really know him or know anything his background, and David sent an email, and not knowing that he was one of your customers or any of that.
Right.
I got an email saying when we bought the DeLorean Roadster, I know where your hood is for your car, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, who the fuck is this guy? Knows where my hood is? What the fuck? Like, we get all kinds of crazy emails.
Oh, sure.
Especially with that car, we were getting emails of like, oh, I know what car that is, and they're sending us a photo of a car from like, Canada in 1962. We're like, this isn't no.
That's the same car. That's the same car. Well,
But he sent me that, and I was like, okay. So I always respond to people and respond back, and he's like, he knew. And then I had right at that same time another guy that knew the same guy, confirmed it, and I'm like, oh, this guy's, and then we talked, and it was just, then I realized once I talked to him, I think he and I talked on the phone once or twice, and I realized he was like
David is
nerdier than I was about the history stuff and all that, because he was like, I could tell the hood, the louvers, who punched it. It's one of these two shops, and I'm like, damn, from that one,
And you got to think with David, with him, like he's got the stack roadster.
Yeah.
He has the original body. He has the original drive line. Everything's there at his house. And talking with David, and David's one of those kind of customers I really greatly appreciate somebody who can still write you a handwritten letter. Like I have every single scrap of paper he's ever sent me, every handwritten letter he's sent me. Penmanship is just amazing. But he's one of those kind of guys where, again, the only reason he has a computer is because of his girlfriend.
Okay.
Does not own a cell phone, won't ever own a cell phone.
Wow.
David's when I met him, he was still a professor. He's now, basically, working for himself.
Right.
But again, but that's how I got to meet him. And again, but his wealth of knowledge is just like.
Yeah, I did a
You know
quick
all
phone
this
call, and
and
it was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
you're like, this guy knows. Holy crap! Okay, all right. I believe you. I believe you. And
he was, because I remember when we were talking, he's like, I know the guy. He's probably a little hard to deal with for you because he doesn't know you or whatever. He said, I've dealt with him before. Let me work on him. Or
Right.
He left it at that, and then it was all of a sudden between him and the guy the younger guy that worked with this gentleman that
Sure.
that had the hood. He called me back up or emailed and said, I got him warmed up. I think whatever. And
that sounds like David. That sounds like
he's
I got
kinda
him warmed
like,
up for you.
Here you go. I think he's warmed up the idea. Because I think he did a couple calls, and then he got his phone number and said he's okay to call him, and he was right. He said he's going to be a little standoffish or however he put it. Sure enough, when I called the guy, he was exactly. But I was prepared, and he kind of prepped him for me because really he kind of made it seem like he saw in the videos, I guess, however he saw it, that I was like really about we need to find these pieces because it's part of the car's identity and blah blah. So he was like, I understand how important this is. And again, me not knowing until later on that he was your customer and cars he had, that and then I was like, oh, I get it. But without him, and I actually, everything happened so fast with that car. It was like a year, maybe the car was almost on the road. A light bulb in my head off one day. I said, I never fucking properly thanked that guy, and it was like I felt so embarrassed and rude. So I 2 years later sent him here really sorry, thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without you, blah blah blah. And I was like, whether he even cared or remembered.
No, he did because he said something to me. I'm like, I said, David, I'm getting to know Matt more and more. I said, you got to understand with Matt. I said, he's one of those guys that he's like.
Yes.
Everywhere. I said, that guy. I said, you watch you watch the YouTube channel. I said, and he is every direction. And you're like, so what's this week gonna be?
Yeah,
you know,
we never
again,
know.
You don't
We
know,
don't,
and that's
we
why I
don't.
told David, I said, just give him a second. I said, and
it took me a while. I was
that-
super.
Yeah, and you
I
did, and
felt
again,
so
the best part,
embarrassed.
he goes, well, and Dave's like, well, okay. I think he was kind of, a little hurt by it, but at the same time, like, give him a second. I said, he'll hit him, and sure enough, you did it on your own. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah,
I
it
forgot
was
the
like one of
same
you know,
thing.
you ever have one of those things where you're like, oh my god, I'm such an asshole. Like I just was like,
It
because
happens.
that's what happens with me. You're right.
But you're excited, you're doing this, and you're already going.
Yep.
And I've done it plenty of times. Like, oh, by the way, I need to thank this person. Oh, by the way, I need to thank, anyway.
In our world, things are moving so fast with the business and the channel and
Yes.
all the stuff. We do that, and I try to make a mental note, like I said, answering emails and responding to people and stuff like that. We try and do that. I'm like,
Sure.
I also need to make sure that people that help us out, you go back and thank them. So that was one where I was like, man, he was kind of instrumental in that, and it all got kind of like lost because the other gentleman that worked with him was the second person that kind of facilitated it.
Sure.
And because we did the physical transaction, that guy and I, of trading hoods and getting
Right.
it, I kind of, that overshadowed a little bit when it was really David that kind of started the process
Yeah.
of warming him up. This other guy worked with him, but I don't think he would have necessarily warmed him up like David
Yeah.
did. I think they were
David's a-
peers, if you will.
It took him, I think, 2-3 years to get the stack roadster body. He tracked the body down.
Really well.
And what it was is the guy who owned it didn't want to let go of it. It was technically a street rod, but the body was still pretty much intact. But he's like, well, it's going to go to my son. And his kid didn't want the car. Dave's like, I will buy you a brand new body. And he finally worked a deal, and because we had talked, like 2 or 3 years ago, we were discussing it, and I'm like, said something about the stack roadster. He goes, oh, I didn't tell you, did I? I'm like, what happened? He goes, I got the body.
Wow.
All these years, and I said, I remember just being the engine and transmission and all the drive lines just sitting in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to David's house one time, and I helped him. He had bought another Model Roadster. It had overhead valve in it and everything else. We took all that out one night. I'm like, I was staying at his place. Let's go out and tinker. Let's go pull it out. You sure? I'm like, yeah, come on. Let's go out to the garage. And we hung out and we took it apart and this and that. And
Nice.
at that time, the Matranga Merc chassis is still sitting there, and the body is still off. Getting work done. And again, and David's one of those kind of guys. And this is again, he's a whole different breed. He's the kind of person where that car, every single nut, bolt, screw is either Ford or Merc.
Wow.
None of it's new. None of it. And he was, the only heat that's new were the shocks. And he had to have a specific shock. And David's the kind of person, he's even getting the decals made to match what would have been the original shock back then.
See? You think I'm freaking insane.
You
Dave-
are insane. It's okay.
I am insane, but like there's different levels. That makes me feel like a normal person.
There's that nerd level. But again, it's that respect level. The fact David has that much respect for it.
Yeah.
And that's where
love
we
it.
were laughing about, but listen to the last time we're doing like this, this and that. And then he brought up another car to me. He's like, what about this car here? Oh, the Emery car.
Really?
Yeah, well, that car's gone. So Dave bought a Dodge convertible. It's coming in for the metal work and for a pad top for me and the interior work.
Crazy.
So again, I've got my ratio board. Just there's 3 cars in a row. The cars coming from him.
Cool.
The Matranga Merc, which I have the material sitting here for that car.
Nice. Nice.
Which we were trying to track down the old DuPont material, which I said you're not going to find. So we found something close enough.
Nice.
I ordered the stuff he needed for that, and then we discussed even with the stack roadster. I have an original Model A roadster seat with the original vinyl still on it in good shape, and that's what David wants. That's what was in the stack roadster.
Nice.
It wasn't anything fancy back then. It was a race car.
Right.
So I'm like, even the material still in the seats. David goes, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "Nope." He goes, "Do you want it?" And he goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Yours."
Nice. Nice.
So again, but he's that kind of person where he's like, "I want this a certain specific way," or if you see this, like he asked about the heads the other day, and I'm like, I'll ask Matt. I said,
What were they again? I forget.
The Nord or what was it?
Oh, Ords.
Ords.
Yes.
Ords.
I had a chance to buy a set a little while ago, and I could make it happen. But
And
yeah,
so you come across a set. I know David's wanting a set for what I don't know. But he's got a really cool Ord intake.
Well, that's tough for me because that's
That's
what
the
I'm
same thing
upset.
for you too.
Yeah, that's like that's like a pretty obscure stuff. So I'd want to put it on the wall or keep it for a project someday.
Right, exactly.
So
But
when you
again,
sent me that, I was like, man, that's a rare one. I don't know if I'd want to sell it if I had it.
because he goes, oh man, you're talking to Matt. Ask him if he has this. I'm like, okay. I said,
We try, but
I don't think he has that, but I'll ask him. But again, that's the reason I asked because I was talking with David.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, he's a unique guy.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with us and telling
Yeah.
us some stories. It's been awesome, and we can bullshit for days
Oh, my
about
God,
all this
we'd
stuff.
be here all night.
Yeah. So, but I appreciate it. I can't wait to see all the next stuff that you have coming in
Yeah.
and getting done. I mean, it's fun to watch from the other side of the country, seeing the work and the cars that you're doing, and like you said, it's stepping back in time every time you put a car that I see you kind of going through the process. It's neat. So.
And again, that's my whole thing behind it. I want to, for me, it's like we with Franco's car. It's like it's been a dream of his to have another 32.5 window. But this one's, and again, like I told him the other day, this one's being built for you specifically. It's not somebody's car you bought.
Right.
So
Anything you want or however you want.
Pretty much, and he pretty much kind of gave me kind of an open hand with the car.
Okay.
Like the taillights, he was specific with running the arrow headlights, and
I saw he was doing some doodles on the
Well,
social medias that he was
it'll-
doing some doodles. I can't wait.
It'll be back on there again, and then like we were like the motor that's in the car was one I had, the 283. It's like, I could be okay with that, and I knew he wasn't going to be. I know him well enough. And Will from Find It Parts had that 327 hit for sale.
Okay.
It's a running motor. It's got one cylinder, number 7. It's got low compression. And I shot Franco a message, like, dude, do you want this? He's like, yes. Because every 32's had 327 in it.
So you had to have
And
that.
again, but that's there's that specific things, specific numbers, and Franco will just go on and on about that. And he we're all weird that way. We all want a certain thing, I know different. You're back in the day and doing a flathead before everything's getting remade. Oh man, got to find a Merc crank.
Yep.
And again, it was that's kind of that same mentality, for him.
Yeah, we
know.
all fixate on certain things on a car that you need to have that makes you happy, whether it makes sense or not. And I totally get it.
Completely. So that's that. I guess that's for me. It's gonna be good seeing him back behind the wheel of his own car. And again, like I said, when you talk to him, even the steering wheel has history. Wait till he tells you that story.
Awesome.
So.
Well, I can't wait to see it. Thank
Definitely.
you, David. I appreciate it. It's been
Mike,
awesome.
thank you for freezing in my shop with me.
This is warm for us.
Comfortable right
I'm
now.
actually quite comfortable. This is nice. In Pennsylvania, I put a sweatshirt on just because I don't want to stand out in California wearing a T-shirt.
Right? You're like, what did you think? I used to come in wearing Bermuda shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, hey, it's party time.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cool, definitely.